G'day, Peter Hardy-Atkins back in his YouTube chair talking about his favourite quadcopter, the Walkera QR X350. Since you saw it last, a couple of changes, but no breakages. Please note, no breakages. First of all, the spirit level on the top. Looks a little bit like a bazooka. That's alright with me. And it's very much more convenient than that special launch board that you saw me with last time. The disadvantage is that this is only recording fore and aft variations. If you want to check how level the ground is on the east-west axis, then you've got to change the position during your initial setup and before you start the calibration. Other variations, look at them propellers down the back. Thanks very much to the guys at Thunder Ridge who had a QRX exactly like this. I think it hugely improves the visibility of the aircraft. And my third variation is the addition of this little camera. You've seen the product of this camera in some of my early videos, but I don't think I ever showed you what I was using and how it was attached. I did give some thought as investing in the latest version of the GoPro, which I have to say, while it's beautiful quality, it is a rather expensive. When I found this was available for $75, I thought, that's an experiment I want to try. And I put it to you that there are not a lot of modelers who would be able to tell the technical difference in quality between the GoPro in its flash version and this little Mobius. Not a big difference at all. Well worth thinking about, particularly if you're strapped for cash. So, it's held on with Velcro to the underside of the Walkera, and you'll see I've got a safety strap in the form of an elastic band which goes round to the back leg. So if I put the camera back on in this nice forward position, it doesn't see the blades of the propellers. And to me that's a plus. I don't really want to see little flashing things in the corner of the frame. And I also have a Velcro lens cap which normally would live on there while in flight and recording. And it makes great sense to keep the lens cap on when the camera is not in use. However, it makes even more sense to take the lens cap off when it is in use. So, there are the updates on my Walkera. 4 months in, I've flown it more than once a day average since I got it, and still not a single component part has been changed. I have actually worn out my battery charger. Well, it was 3 years old, so I can't say that I wore out entirely with the Walkera's use. So, looking at the transmitter for a moment, because last night I made a silly mistake. I made an accidental error in that I flicked the IOC switch into an on position. Notice that the IOC switch is now covered in blue tack to reduce the chance of that ever happening again. Because you wouldn't believe it, but this silly old fool made 3 attempts at flight, line of sight, ordinary aerobatic flying, with that switch in the on position. It's a mistake, folks. You go to make any kind of turn that involves the use of yaw, and you'll be in big trouble. 3 times I made that mistake and got away with it, which does go to show just what a tough little unit the QRX is. On the subject of how good the QRX is, I have, since I last spoke with you, I've run into modelers who paid for a much more expensive version of what seems to be the same device. Theirs doesn't fly any better than mine does. There has to be a message in that. Okay. Now the real subject for today is FPV. I've been flying FPV now on and off for about 3.5 months. Always using my own scratch-built frames. And I've noticed that the number of accidents doubles when you start to fly FPV. Now, it could be that a younger bloke with quicker reflexes and sharper flying skills would have fewer accidents than me, but I haven't met any of that kind of people yet. I find that they're having the same sort of accident rate as I've had. There must be a way around this, and the last time I had a bad accident, I thought to myself, why don't I put the FPV gear on the Walkera? Because it's got a return to home switch, and it's got a hover hold switch, and if you're really daring, it's got an IOC switch. All of those functions would be great if you got into trouble with an FPV. The trouble I got into, very simple, I had changed the channel on the transmitter which sends the picture from the camera. But I hadn't range tested it. And I got about halfway across the field, like 100 metres away from myself, and the picture started to fade. And I thought, oh, that doesn't matter. That'll be right, it'll come good, there must be a power line going through there. Well, it didn't come good. And 4 seconds later, I had no picture at all, and still the thing was flying away from me. And when I did eventually look up and found this tiny little mosquito hovering in the sky over the local hockey courts, I thought, oh no! This was in a standard quadcopter, no return to home, no hover hold, just bare basics. And I luckily got it back into my paddock, but I didn't land it all that smoothly, and I was very lucky not to do damage. So, why not use the Walkera as your basis for FPV? Well, you'll see here, I have tried it. Not a huge success. It probably would be alright, but it looks awful, and if you do have an accident, you might end up having to buy a lot of fairly expensive parts. I would rather use a scratch-built quad for FPV. I love my Walkera, and I really don't want to see it being scratched up and messed around, but it works. The FPV gear does not interfere with the GPS functions. The aircraft flies just like you would expect it to. It's a little more sluggish in the climb department, but there was nothing wrong with the climb range on the Walkera in the first place. Why would anybody care about that? I don't. But I do care about doing damage. So I'm going to get back to you within a month with a scratch-built version for FPV. And it could be that I will use the internal components of a Walkera QRX. You look around, you can often find people wishing to dispose of damaged QRXs and going at nice cheap prices. And there is a very famous distributor of hobby gear who's currently selling an upgraded version of the QR X350 for $300 freight free. Now, it is kind of hard to match that price when you go to set up a quality FPV machine. And maybe that would be a good way to go. Food for thought, but I'll catch up with you in about a month's time when I will be able to show you my advanced FPV on a scratch-built frame. Till then, happy flying and happier landings.